All right, let's try this again. This YouTube stuff is harder than it looks. I must have done this two times already. Like, first time there was, I live in the suburbs, so you have those lawnmowers and things. Can't hear anything. But anyways, this is my third and final time not doing this again. Okay. Today we're going to talk about the Racing Beat race exhaust and the Racing Beat dual resonator mid pipe that I have in my 04 Mazda RX8. I installed this part about 2 to 3 years ago, right? And first talk about the reliability of this part. After installing this part, the car mostly saw track work. We'll go on weekend trips here and there, but it was mostly track duty. And in terms of the materials, it never cracked, never had any issues. The bolts that connect the catback with the resonator mid pipe rusted a little bit, but nothing crazy, which is surprising because I don't really drive this car in the snow or anything in the salt, but whatever, nothing too bad. But aside from that, the material itself hasn't cracked and didn't give me any issues. I will say, just from a visual perspective, the back of the race exhaust, the little can, turns a little titanium, kind of bluish from the heat. Looks pretty cool. So there's something that has to do with the material, but no major issues in terms of the cracking or denting or anything like that. It's been great. Now, weight. These parts weigh significantly less than what the car originally came with. If weight savings is what you're after, these parts make sense. They do weigh significantly less than the original catback and the original catalytic converter. Makes sense, right? The Racing Beat mid pipe doesn't have any it's not a catalytic converter, it's a straight pipe that has been resonated, so it don't make a lot of noise. But from a weight savings perspective, it's there. You can lift these things with one hand if you want, but something you can't really do with the original. The sound. At idle, the car doesn't sound annoyingly loud. It's louder than stock as expected, but it's not annoyingly loud. You can idle and you can hear it, and you can have a conversation with the car being next to you. So from that's great. If you're driving the car and you have partial throttle and you're under 5,000 RPMs, sounds like a nice cruiser. It doesn't bother you. You don't hear like a droning, whatever that's when you're inside the car. You can hear it outside, but it's not like out of this world. You know, it's not annoying. When you hit that throttle and you go past 5,000 RPMs and you're full throttle, you're gonna know why it's called race exhaust. It is loud. Not annoyingly loud, but it's loud. It has a good tone to it, just like Racing Beat said, but it is not loud to the point that you're like, ill. It's loud to the point that if you don't want folks to hear you, if you're driving the Spirit, if you're going fast or enjoying the car on the street here, local roads, the cops will hear you, right? That's something to keep in mind. But if you're at the track, you're gonna have a blast. It sounds good, doesn't bother you, it's not annoying, and you get to spit out flame every time you shift, which is kind of cool, right? And if you're pre-mixing, you probably get a little bit more flame than that. But yeah, just something to think about. Around town, it's not annoyingly loud. You can get away with it. Above 5,000 RPMs, at full throttle is loud. It's a race exhaust for that, you know. But again, it's all about what you're looking to get out of it, right? I didn't do a comparison between OEM and this. When I took the piece off, I didn't think ahead of time. I don't do YouTubes like that, so I didn't even think about doing that. But you can hear it overstock, but not annoying. It's not so much that you're like, oh, what did I do here? Doesn't, and to Racing Beast credit, they do mention that in the description of their website that it has a quote unquote like a grown up sound. I'm not sure what that means, but what they mean by that, but I kind of get it. It's not, it doesn't make you self conscious of how loud you are and how it sounds. It sounds good, has a good tone to it. So that's that. Emissions. If you get rid of the catalytic converter that came with the car and you replace it with Racing Beast dual resonator mid pipe, which is what I have, and you put the O2 sensor that originally is in the car, you're going to get a check engine light. This is not a surprise. Racing Beast says this in their website and the product description. You're going to get it. But also what they said was that the car was going to work fine. And it does. I didn't have a check engine light prior to installing that piece. The moment I installed that piece, I got a check engine light, like a permanent one. Now, the car runs fine. Doesn't hesitate, doesn't move, doesn't choke, nothing. It works fine. Not sure what you want to do with that. Just something to keep in mind, especially if you're trying to pass inspections and emissions. I know in the state where I live, if you got a check engine light, you're probably not going to pass emissions. So there's ways around that. I'll leave that to you, but just something to keep in mind. If you keep the OEM catalytic converter working one, and you use the race exhaust, which you can do, you shouldn't get, and your O2 sensor is working properly, you shouldn't have any issues with the check engine light. I think it has to do with something with the position and the fact that it doesn't get a good reading because it doesn't have all that titanium catalytic converter stuff that normally is there for emissions. Speaking of catalytic converters, smell. When you go straight pipe, in this racing, specifically in this setup, you turn on this car and you go walk around it, you're gonna smell like pure rotary perfume, cologne, whatever you want to call it. Pure racing. It feels like you've been racing all day. It doesn't take you, even sometimes when the car is cold start, you can see a little bit of blue coming out, but not too much. Once the car gets warmed up to operating temperature, the blue kind of goes away, and the smell's not as rich, but it's there. And that's something to keep in mind. If you're gonna race, if you have to use that as a track car, why not? Doesn't matter, right? That's what we're for. We all love that smell. But if you're gonna use this setup as a daily or as a weekend weekend fun toy car, you might wanna keep at least the OEM catalytic converter. The reason I say that is because you don't wanna get in your car, go see your friends and arrive smelling like fumes and gasoline and oil burnt. Maybe you do want to know everybody know you got a rotary, but most people probably don't. I personally do not. I didn't mind it in the beginning, but as I used the car less and less to the track, since I got my SS1 Elite, now using for track duty, this car has become more of a weekend toy. And every time I get in it, I gotta rush to get inside the car so I don't get the smell on me. So it's something that I'm thinking about very heavily about what to do about that next. So just that to keep in mind. And so just to summarize, if you're gonna track the car, and it's just basically your track car, the dual resonator mid pipe with the race exhaust is a great setup. You're gonna get all those gases faster out of the engine, everything flows faster, sounds good, and you get a lot of weight savings. Remember, you're gonna have to have that check engine light, so keep that in mind for emissions if you use the mid pipe from Racing Beast. They even mentioned that, I told you earlier. So that's what I would recommend this setup for someone who doesn't mind the smell of fumes, smelling like fumes, when they do weekend trip, and if it's going to be a track setup, which is basically what Racing Beast says. So there's that. If you're going to use it as a weekend toy car, you could do the exhaust, but I would keep the OEM cap or replace it with some sort of cap, because you don't want to be smelling like that. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now I would say that for me, especially since the car is about to turn 20. Oh my God, 20 years old, right? 2004, yeah. 20 years old next year. And cars are becoming, cars like these, right? Rear wheel drive, 50-50 weight distribution, great chassis, high revving engine, are getting harder and harder to find. I mean, you will have to find a similar formula. The GT350 gives you that, right? And that's like, I don't know, $70,000 car or something like that. And then if you want to go to 9,000 RPMs, you're probably looking at a Porsche GT of some sort of, which we all know that's like an arm and a leg if you want that. You could argue that the BRZ and the GR86 have this formula, but those engines, I think they top out like 7,500 or 8,000, I don't know. And those engines have their own issues, but nobody wants to talk about it. So to get a 9,000, 10,000 high revving naturally aspirated engine that's rear wheel drive and that looks unique, different, it's going to be hard to find, especially in the next 10, 15 years as everything becomes electric. So, and quite frankly, these cars, like if an engine blows, which everybody tells you going to blow, whatever, you could order the part from Mazda dealership for the engine itself, already done, for like $7,000 or between $7,000 and $9,000, and you install it yourself. Take one off and just put the pieces. There's so little pieces that you could just take one piece from one engine, put it in the other, and put it back, and you have yourself a brand new engine with a great chassis. So for maybe $10,000, right? If you want to get closest to this, you will have to get a car that's like $30,000, a GR86 or something like that with this kind of formula. You can argue the B18s are high revving. I absolutely love those engines, but that's front wheel drive car, and that's your thing by all means. So I'm thinking that this car is probably going to turn the catalytic converter. I'm going to put back the catalytic converter, the OEM cat back as I saved, and just use it as a weekend toy car, right? I think that that's where I'm at with this car. Parts are getting a little harder to find, and they're going up in price little by little, and it makes sense, right? You're not going to be able to find something like this in the next 15 years because all of these cars, mostly people gave up on them or at a junkyard somewhere because somebody said it didn't work. And if they couldn't work on a rotary, imagine them working on the future hybrid cars, right? So just something to think about. And yeah, let me know if you have any more questions. If you need me to talk about something specifically, I'll do my best. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just sharing the knowledge that I've gathered over the years, the various opinions and arguments I've had before there was a thing as like YouTube and social media and stuff like that. So, yep, I'm kind of a product of all the old forums, if you know what I mean. I contributed a lot to those forums, and I got a lot from those forums. So, let me know if you have any questions, and good luck with everybody.